assassination attempt on, former President Trump happened today, and we just need to be thinking about this kind of stuff. It's just terrible. It's just terrible what's going on. I heard it on the radio. I didn't know what was going on, and then Autumn sent me a message showing from the presidential website, whatever it is, showing that somebody had made an attempt on his life yet again. And I'm afraid that we're just going to keep seeing more and more of this kind of stuff. And it's just sad. If you disagree with somebody, you don't have to kill them over it. So that's just a sad thing. But let's keep that in our prayers and know that, ultimately, we know that God rules in the kingdoms of men. And so really no matter what happens, no matter what person is elected, we know that God is, he's in control. And we just need to put our trust in him and know that he is going to do what's best for us in the long run. Sometimes, nations were punished by heathen nations. Israel was punished on a couple of different occasions by nations that when the prophets heard of it, they were going, why them? And you never know. We don't know what's going on. We have no idea what is in the grand scheme of things. But I hate to see that going on, no matter which side you fall on. That's just terrible stuff. But that's not new though. That's been something that has happened throughout the ages with other presidents as well. So let's open up our Bibles to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 6. You are very familiar with this chapter, at least for part of it. And so we're going to look at it in its entirety and try to make some application here. And we'll probably have a little bit more than normal as far as extra comments on these passages. So I'll try to be as concise as I possibly can. Start in verse 1. Let's look at the first 5 verses. And we're seeing the return of the Ark of God. And this is where they're bringing it back. They're bringing back the Ark of God. Look at verses 1 through 5 with me. And David again gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from thence the Ark of God, which is called by the name, even the name of Jehovah of hosts that sitteth above the cherubim. Now, I really was kind of debating on whether to talk about this, but I can't go away from this passage without showing this. But it says, which is called by the name, and even the name of Jehovah of hosts. So, they use this, as a positive euphemism here, and are referencing God, Jehovah God, when the ark is present. It says, Jehovah that sitteth above the cherubim. Verse 3. And they sat the ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out to the house of Abinadab that was in the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. And so, of course, if you are, we know the whole ordeal here. We know the problem from the get-go. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not new. They knew what they should have been doing. They just weren't doing it. Now, maybe it is that they didn't know specifically, but they had the information handy. It's kind of like, whenever you're driving and you drive through a small town and you realize that it's a small town, and Oklahoma does this quite a bit. You can be driving 70 on a back road, and then all of a sudden it drops to 45 or 35 real quick. Well, if you go, hey, I'm driving through here, I did not know what the speed limit was, you think that that's going to work for the police officer? Oh, I didn't know. That's the same thing that's going on here. How should they have known? In Exodus 25, verses 13 and 14, and thou shalt make staves of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, and thou shalt put the staves into the rings on the side of the ark, wherewith to bear the ark. So this is something that was set up a long time ago, right? And now they have ignored this, they have neglected it, whatever you want to say, and now we're about to reap some consequences. Verse 4, let's see here, verse 4, no, we already did it. Yeah, no, 4, sorry. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was in the hill with the Ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before Jehovah with all manner of instruments made of fir wood, and with harps, and with psalteries, and with timbrels, and with castanets, and with cymbals. And so, they're making a big to-do about this. Everybody's really excited about bringing home the Ark of God. And really, everybody should be excited, right? This is a monumental thing that has happened in the past, that they have, this was built, that this was taken care of, and God dwelt above the cherubim. This is a significant event. They're bringing this back home. Everybody should be happy. Of course, it was under Samuel that all this was taken away, and then Saul, of course, is during his reign. So anyway, moving on. Look at verses 6 through 8 with me. This is Perez Uzzah. Verses 6 through 8. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of Jehovah was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. And David was displeased, because Jehovah had broken forth upon Uzzah, and he called that place Perez Uzzah unto this day. And so, you look at verse 6, it seems like the intentions of Uzzah are very, very pure. I mean, we don't have any sort of indication here that he thought, this is my moment. This is my moment that I get to touch the ark and it's going to be okay because the oxen is going to stumble. We don't see anything like that. What happens is just unfortunate. Now, we already know, and they already knew what the penalty was for this. At least they should have known what the penalty was. In Numbers 4, verse 15, and when Aaron and his sons have made an end of the covering of the sanctuary, and all the furniture of the sanctuary as the camp is set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it. But they shall not touch the sanctuary, lest they die. These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath and the tent of meeting. And so, you can look at all the things in association with the tabernacle as they were being transported. And the sons of Kohath are going to be the ones transporting it. They're the ones that, they're Levites. They're supposed to be the ones transporting this. And they're supposed to, of course, take that ark that's supposed to be on those poles, the acacia wood, overlaid with gold, and then they are to carry it that way. It's not supposed to be driven on a cart. Now, I guess, when you think about this and in hindsight, you go, well, who wants to carry something? That's got to be heavy, right? I don't know how heavy it would be. I've never looked into that. Maybe that's something somebody can look into. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know how heavy that box could have been. But it probably was pretty heavy, even split between 4 people. Now, given that, just kind of thinking about that for just a minute, if you have ever tried to carry anything that's really not that heavy for a long distance, it becomes heavy real quick. There's been times where we've had something catastrophic happen in our city, and I remember walking one time to a gas station to just get some milk or something. I can't remember what it was, but it might have been a gallon of water. But whatever it was not really that heavy until I started walking with it. I could have walked around in the store with it for a while, but you know what? As soon as I started walking down the road with it, it got super heavy. Now, I'm not giving them any sort of leeway here. This is just not the way that they're supposed to carry it. Maybe they thought, this is the logical thing. I don't know. But then, of course, he dies. And then David calls this place Perez Uzzah. Now, this means bursting out against Uzzah. So, David, of course, we're going to see is in this very next verse, he's going to be, I guess, upset with God. He's going to fear God for sure. But he's upset with this whole situation. Let's look at that. Let's look at Obed-Edom and his blessings here, verses 9 through 11. And David was afraid of Jehovah that day, and he said, "How shall the ark of God, of Jehovah come unto me?" So David would not remove the ark of Jehovah unto him into the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of Jehovah remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and Jehovah blessed Obed-Edom and all his house. So, you look at this, David fears God, which is really interesting when you think about Saul versus David. I mean, we're going to do this quite a bit, but when you think about Saul versus David, what was Saul afraid of? Pretty much everything, all the wrong things, really. I mean, he doesn't seem to be afraid of God because he'll go and do anything against God's will. So he's not really afraid of God. Maybe it is because he can't see God. I don't know. But he's afraid of those little things that he can see. You go back and look at him from the very beginning, and I stand by this. Sometimes people go, "Oh, well, Saul, he was very humble. He's very humble." That's not what we find in Scripture. That's not the context of what Saul does. Saul is not humble in his mindset. He is scared. He is scared. He is scared all the time. And whenever it does say, that he's lowly in his sight from 1 Samuel 15, it's because Samuel is pointing out, you are fearing the people, but aren't you the king? Why did you think that you were lowly in your sight? That's the whole point there. And so it's not the context that he's humble. He's not. Matter of fact, he's scared. The very first time you see him, he's hiding. Anyway. But multiple occasions mentions that he fears the people. He fears the people over and over and over again. Now, who are you supposed to fear? Are you supposed to fear God or fear the people? Clearly the answer is you fear God. You don't fear the people. You do what God says. But yet, Saul, he's afraid of all the wrong things. David, on the other hand, here's the contrast. What does it say about David, verse 9? He fears Jehovah. He fears God. And, this is something that is a big contrast between these two kings. All right, looking at the next set of passages here. Next set of passages, talking about celebrating the return of the ark. Verses 12 through 19. And it was told King David, saying, Jehovah hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that pertaineth unto him, because of the ark of God. And David went and brought up the ark from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with joy. And it was so that when they that bare the ark of Jehovah had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and fatling. So they've learned, here they were putting it on a cart, now they're carrying it. And then, of course, they make this sacrifice here in the very first of this. Verse 14. And David danced before Jehovah with all his might, and David was girded with a linen ephod. And so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of Jehovah with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. And it was so, as the ark of Jehovah came into the city of David, that Michal the daughter of Saul looked out at the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Jehovah, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of Jehovah and set in the place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Jehovah. And when David had made an end of offering the burnt offering and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Jehovah of hosts. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, both the men and women, to every one a cake of bread and a portion of flesh and a cake of raisins. So all the people departed, every one to his house. And so, they are really celebrating this. But, we see verse 13 that, of course, they bear the ark the right way. And First Chronicles 15, verse 15, it says, And the children of the Levites bear the ark of God upon their shoulders with staves thereon, as Moses commanded according to the word of Jehovah. So they have gone, they have fixed their mistake, they've looked it up, evidently. If they didn't already know it, they've looked it up, and they come back, and they are carrying the ark the right way. Now, verse 16 is where Michal is referred to as Saul's daughter and not as David's wife. Now, this is referenced in verse 20, verse 23, and then also in 2 Samuel 3 and verse 13, all say Michal, the daughter of Saul. Now, I think that there is a reason for this. It looks like Michal has a contempt for David, and it looks like it's all of a sudden, but it's really not all of a sudden. What has happened to Michal? She was married to David, but then after a while, she was given to another man that was not her husband, right? And so then they have been married according to, her father. They have been married for all this time. And then now David has taken her back. And so she has been with a man who wasn't supposed to be her husband for longer than she's been with David. Now, I can imagine that would be a very hard situation to be in, no matter where you fall on the significance of marriage in this proposal here. But she's not been with David for very long. And of course, when you think about this, does David have just her as wife? No, he's got several other wives, right? And this is what I've heard. This is kind of the biggest complaint that came out of the early stages of the Mormon religion. And remember what they did? They had polygamy, and that was a man could have many wives and basically build a harem for himself. And you know what came out of that? A lot of dissension among women that were supposed to be married to one husband. I know that in recent years they had a weird show called Sister Wives, and I think I'd never watched that show, so I don't know, but I think they were trying to present that as, oh, look, it's normal, and people can do this, and we can all get along, and I don't know how that show ended up, but anyway, all that being said, there is some competition aspect of this, and there's a lot of factors that are going on here. But the fact that she's called Michal, the daughter of Saul, I think is a change in her attitude. She was not David's wife anymore. She didn't want to be David's wife, evidently. And she has a disdain for David, and you're going to see that in the following verses. Let's look at verses 20 through 23 here. We see her disdain. Then David returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How glorious was the king of Israel today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovereth himself." And David said unto Michal, "It was before Jehovah, who chose me above thy father, and above all his house, to appoint me prince over the people of Jehovah, over Israel. Therefore will I play before Jehovah, and I will be yet more vile than this, and will be base in mine own sight. But the handmaids of whom thou hast spoken, of them shall I be had in honor." And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child unto the day of her death. So some have referenced that David here in verse 20, because of what Michal says, that David was dancing naked before the ark. That is the most ludicrous thing I think every time I've read this, I've never thought, oh, David's dancing naked in front of everybody. And she's saying, well, he has shamelessly uncovered himself, right? And so what's the point? What has happened? Well, the scripture already tells us what was going on. In chapter 6 and verse 14, we just need to read our Bible and see what it says. It says, "And David danced before Jehovah with all his might, and David was girded with a linen ephod." So he is wearing clothing. He is clothed. 1 Chronicles 15 verse 27, "And David was clothed with a robe of fine linen, and all the Levites that bear the ark, and the singers, and the Cheniah, the master of the song, with singers, and David had upon him an ephod of linen." So this goes a little further and says, well, he's got a robe on, but then he's wearing this, basically a priestly garment here. And so this is not showing anything vile here. But Michal's contempt towards David causes her to exaggerate his state of undress. It is, quite frankly, you'll hear people saying stuff like this today. But she says, look, he's as a vain fellow, insinuating David is not acting like a king, that he is just, he doesn't deserve his position. Now, there are some times in the scripture where somebody will say something and you're thinking, that is the most bold statement I think I have read in a while, and David has one of those right here. David focuses on God here. David said to Michal, verse 21, "It was before Jehovah who chose me," how? "Above thy father." I don't know if this has ever happened. I hear about this. I don't do this, but has anybody ever had a complaint about their in-laws? Right? What did David, no, yeah, there's a lot of no's. Nope, never had one. Yeah, well, some people, they have to complain about their in-laws. Well, think about if you're married to the daughter of Saul. Is there anything noteworthy to complain about for Saul? Well, this is not really a complaint, but he says, you know what, your dad couldn't cut it. That's kind of the thought process here. Listen, Jehovah chose me over your father. Your father wasn't doing what was right, and so Jehovah chose me over your father. And then he goes on to say, David says, verse 22, you know what, you didn't like that? Well, you're not going to like the future, because I'm going to humble myself more than that. You think that was vile? I'm going to be more vile. So I'm going to humble myself more than this in the future. And he references those maidservants. He's not referencing them as he's trying to attract them. He's referencing them and saying, look, common people are going to be endeared to me because of these things, because I'm not acting like a king, if you will. So people are going to be endeared to me because I have humbled myself. It's sad that verse 23 comes along, but the very fact of the matter is that women in the ancient Near Eastern area felt shame when they could not conceive. And so David and Michal may have ceased having relationships from this point forward. We don't know anything. We don't need to know anything. The only thing we know is that, at least from this point forward, even if there is a physical relationship, she's now childless. She cannot have a child. And whether it's because of David in particular or because of God, she has shame. So that's it. All right, let's get on to some lessons learned here. Number one, if you don't get this one by going over 2 Samuel 6, then you need to reread 2 Samuel 6, because this is like the major thing that you get from it. And that is, you need to know the law of God. I mean, if they had really understood it from the beginning, what do you think they would have done? They said, hey, we got to carry this ark on staves, okay? We can't do anything. We got to do exactly what it says. And yet, they didn't do that. Listen, here's the thing. People all the time will say, well, what if you don't know? What if you don't know about salvation? Will you be lost? Oh, well, did Uzzah die because he touched the ark? I assume, and we all, I think, assume he didn't know. So was there repercussions because he didn't know? Just kind of like going through those Oklahoma towns. Like, if you didn't know that you need to slow down, does that keep you out of a ticket? No, it doesn't, right? Psalm 1 and verse 2. We mentioned this morning, but his delight, this blessed man, his delight is in the law of Jehovah, and on his law doth he meditate day and night. Let's meditate on the word of God next. We got to do things the right way. In Genesis 4, 6, and 7, it says, And Jehovah said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shall it not be lifted up? If thou doest not well, sin coucheth at the door, and unto thee shall be its desire, but do thou rule over it. And so God even asked Cain, hey, if you do well, that's the whole point here. Why, if you're going to do well, shall you not be lifted up? Shall you not, feel good about what you've done? And yet, he knows that he didn't do right, and so now he's upset by it. John 4, verse 24, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship in spirit and truth. And so we got to do things the right way. This comes to worship again. When we look at our worship assembly, sometimes I know people that are used to denominationalism look at this and they go, this is strange, but you know what? We got to do it the right way. We got to do it the right way because it is important. Those little things, as we've so often talked about, they absolutely do matter. And then, last but not least, don't have a haughty attitude. This is the whole idea of pride. Look at Michael. She's saying, oh, you acted like a king today, didn't you, buddy? But she was in the wrong. She shouldn't have done that. She was not, maybe she had, like I said, maybe she had some reasons that she didn't like David, and that's why she's saying these things. But no matter what it is, she should not have had that attitude. And of course, she has some repercussions for that. In Proverbs 16 and verse 18, it says, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs, of course, have several things to say here, so we're going to mention a few more. In chapter 3 and verse 34, it says, surely he scoffeth at the scoffers, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. God's favor goes to those that are humble, yet the scoffers, he's going to scoff at the scoffers. Chapter 11, verse 2, when pride cometh, then cometh shame. But with the lowly is wisdom. When you think that you've got everything lined up, when you're prideful, you think that when I was growing up, we always said, that person thinks that they're all that in a bag of chips, I don't even know if nobody says anymore, but I still think it, but yeah, people, man, they sometimes they think a lot more of themselves than they ought to. And so when pride cometh, then cometh shame. Somebody's going to humble you, and it's not going to be the fun way. But with the lowly is wisdom. Chapter 21 and verse 4. A high look and a proud heart, even the lamp of the wicked is sin. So, that's a whole, looking down on somebody. You got a high look, kind of looking down your nose at somebody, right? A high look and a proud heart. So look at this last one with me. Proverbs 18 and verse 12, and then we'll look at a passage from the New Testament. It said, before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor goeth humility. You want some honor? Then the best way to do that is to be humble. Let somebody else honor you. You just go ahead and humble yourself, and let that be it. As far as a man, whenever a man is haughty, well, destruction comes with that. Destruction comes with man who is high-minded on himself. All right, we're going to end with this one. Luke chapter 18, verses 10 through 14, and I believe that is 16 lines of text for those of you that are concerned about PowerPoint length. So, two men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as the rest of men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in a week. I give tithes of all that I get. But the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote his breast, saying, God, be thou merciful to me, a sinner. I say unto you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For every one that exalteth himself shall be humbled, but he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Brethren, this is the lesson Michael should have received. She should have thought, hey, you know what? I'm not, I'm not the king. This obviously David has been given king over my father. She doesn't think any of that stuff. She just goes, oh, yeah, you look like a king today. And that just comes from somebody who just is not, there's several things about that, but her attitude just is not right. And that's just the plain, simple fact. So let's not have that haughty mindset. Let's not be prideful. Let's just simply follow God. Brethren, if there is anybody here tonight that has not yet obeyed the gospel, or you've been a Christian but you have not been living right, this is your time to make it right. Please use this invitation for its intended purpose and come as we stand and as we sing.